Hi, this is Ryan with Chalk, and today we're here with our Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Matt Dorsey. If you like these videos, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you can get the latest information on herbs and natural living from our channel. Stick around for a coupon to save at Chalk.com. Okay, so I'm here with Dr. Matt, and we are talking about adaptogens and nootropics. These are two words that I think are just really getting a lot of attention right now, but people are having a lot of trouble figuring out what they are and how to use them. So can we define both nootropic and adaptogen?
Absolutely, for sure. So nootropic, also pronounced nootropic by many people, but I prefer the nootropic version of it. Kind of just anything that supports cognitive function, AKA, focus, memory, things like that, right?
Brain health?
Yeah, brain health, yeah, okay. Absolutely, yeah. Your ability to learn, to form new memories, to be focused, right? It's obviously something that everyone is interested in, so. Now an adaptogen, and these aren't mutually exclusive, we'll get into that, but an adaptogen is a compound that tends to promote homeostatic balance throughout the body, right? So it tends to have a lot of properties where it brings you into the middle. So instead of being unidirectional, they tend to be bidirectional. Adaptogen, for example, they tend to have benefits for adrenal function, where maybe let's say if you are redlining in terms of stress, then they possibly might bring your cortisol levels down. That's very common, right? But at the same time, if you're also low on energy, they tend to help bring that up to a normal amount.
Oh, okay.
So they're very homeostatic.
So what are some examples that people might know on adaptogens, and then also some examples of nootropics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So nootropics, so many, and I'll hit some that are the same, but I'll do, so we'll just kind of see what happens. I'll list them off. But so some popular adaptogens that are also nootropics, I think Rhodiola would be the #1 out there. It's fantastic for focus, really helps with neurotransmitter production, for mood, all that, but it's also a great adaptogen, helps with endurance and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
And also with healthy stress levels. One that would be a little bit more on the nootropic end would be something more like maybe some of these amino acids. So an amino acid that acts as a direct precursor to a certain neurotransmitter. So a great example of that would be like tyrosine, right?
As a dopamine precursor?
Yeah, exactly. Or an acetyl-L-tyrosine, just another version of tyrosine, right? Or maybe even phenylalanine, which is another dopamine precursor, or the version called DLPA. And you could even argue that certain B vitamins are also nootropics, right? You need vitamin B6, obviously, to generate a lot of neurotransmitters, so that would count. Even something like folate would be in that category. Not everyone might say, oh, folate is a nootropic, but I would argue that it absolutely qualifies, for sure.
Sure.
In terms of other adaptogens, anything that walks and talks like ginseng is probably an adaptogen. Ginseng is the prototypical adaptogen, pretty much, right? So anything that's in that same family of substances that bring you into balance, enhance energy, help you basically work for longer periods of time with less stress in your life. Those tend to be adaptogens, and they also tend to have a lot of positive effects on the immune system, for example. But there is a lot of overlap because it's like, how do you actually say where the adaptogen part and the nootropic part, how do you even differentiate where there's so much overlap between the two?
Sure. Okay, so I get this question all the time, and I think maybe some of your patients might be asking this too, but we're seeing these products that wouldn't naturally contain things like lion's mane or chaga in coffee or tea. Is this still a viable source for some of these products, or do we really need to keep it in a supplement form?
That's a great question. I know a lot of these products are getting super popular.
Right.
And I've seen them. And I would really say on a case-by-case basis, I would just look at what's in there and what's the amount and what's the quality of it. So if it's a lion's mane and if it's a sufficient dose, right? If it's something that actually contains enough of the active compounds, right? The hericinones, something like that. That might be wrong, so feel free to correct me in the comments. But yeah, so yeah, I would take it case by case, right? Is there enough that's actually in there? Now, the thing with more functional foods and beverages is they tend to underdose you a lot of the time.
Okay.
I've seen ones that actually give you an adequate amount and other ones where they don't. And then also proprietary blends, again, a food type product is gonna be a lot more likely to use a proprietary blend where you just have this long list of stuff and it says there's lion's mane in there.
Yeah.
And a company that does more food-based stuff is gonna be in general, a lot less serious about using a super high potency or organic extract, for example, and they're gonna be much less likely to quantify what's in there. So it's gonna be much harder for you to know. So you might have to actually call the company and say, how many milligrams and what kind of extract is this, for example.
Sure, so you might be better off with a supplement than like say a Shilajit soda or something like that.
Right, and also a Shilajit soda is not gonna be very tasty. That's personally more of a capsule situation for most people in terms of palatability.
We did a whole conversation on Shilajit that if you're interested you can refer back, but you as soon as you said that it was called tar in a jar, that kind of did it for me. I was out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the tar version.
It's not for the faint of heart. A lot of people will just like pinch off some of the tar and do it that way. That's the old school way, but we have more of like a refined capsule version. It's a little bit easier on the palate, more convenient, but also safer than many of the tar in the jars that are out there for sure.
So is there anything else about sourcing adaptogens or nootropics that you think is important?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Nootropic is such a broad category. It could apply to a nutrient, which could be a vitamin or amino acid. It could apply to an herb, and it could apply to some of these other things that are sort of in this gray area, like CoQ10, like what even is that? It's not really quite a nutrient per se. So it's just such a broad, category. But I would say, there's a lot of great resources if you want to learn about nootropics. It's such a hot topic, so you can search YouTube and look around. If it's a vitamin, make sure it's in its most bioactive, bioavailable form, So like we were saying earlier, make sure that it's a coenzyme, if it's a B vitamin, for example. Also with respect to supplements in general, ones that are trademarked versions will tend to be a little bit more rigorous when it comes to the science behind them. So PQQ, for example, it's a compound that helps with mitochondrial health. It's also considered a nootropic. So if you look for a PQQ, you might want to look for one of the trademarked ones, just as an example, right? Because in most cases, a trademarked version is going to usually be a higher grade of product.
And you mentioned this with Rhodiola too, that
Rhodiola
rosea is really far superior to some of the others.
Right. So with Rhodiola, you do get some imitations that are the Rhodiola crenulata in there, which is going to be sort of an inferior form when it comes to mood and focus. But then also, if you're trying to buy adaptogens or nootropics and you're more on the herbal side, you do want to look for standardized extracts and not raw herbs. Okay. Very, very important.
Okay.
Right, so that means that it should actually say the word extract on the label. If it doesn't say that, you might just be getting a powderized version of the herb, which could be up to 100 times less potent or sometimes even less than that, depending on the potency of the extract.
It sounds like a huge waste of money.
It very well can be, for sure. So you have to really know how to decode the label and do some research. And if you have like a nerdy supplement friend who knows about this stuff, maybe hit him up and just say, hey, could you please give me some guidance on this, because it's.
And I'm sure you'll be answering some Q&As.
Absolutely, for sure.
In the future here at Chalk.
Feel free to ask me anything in the comment section. I'm happy to oblige. Yeah.
And you write a ton of educational information. If somebody wants a little more info and take a deep dive into this, can they find some blogs on Chalk.com?
Absolutely, yeah. If you go and just go to Chalk.com, type in whatever topic you want to on the blog screen. If you could type in the word nootropic, you'd find some stuff. We've got a great article on Bacopa, which is one of my favorite of all nootropics. That one's fantastic. Just check out the blog for sure.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dr. Matt. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Use these coupon codes over at Chalk.com, and thanks for liking and subscribing.